Chase Elliott seems to have forgotten that Kyle Larson is his teammate. Hosts and pundits were quick to point out that Elliott behavior was unacceptable and unprofessional after his incident with Kyle Larson, and it seems that Hendricks drivers just can't stay out of the drama. But is there an issue since last year's Watkins Glen incident? Elliott says there is no issue. Is the media attention too much for him, or is he just having a stroke of bad luck? During the second playoff race at Kansas Speedway, Hendrick Motorsports drivers Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson found themselves in a pit road incident. Larson, attempting to avoid a collision with the car in front of him, ended up colliding with Elliott's number 9 Chevy. Interestingly, Elliott appeared displeased with the contact, expressing his frustration by exchanging some door-banging moments with Larson's number 5 Chevy upon exiting the pit road. This heated exchange on the track has sparked speculation among fans about a potential rivalry brewing between Hendrick Motorsports' prominent drivers. Despite Chase Elliott later indicating that he didn't intend to convey a message with his actions, Fox Danielle Trotta criticized the behavior of the number 9 Chevy driver. Trotta expressed her disapproval on NASCAR SiriusXM radio, labeling Elliott's maneuver against his playoff teammate as unacceptable. He emphasized the need for better judgment, especially when it involves one's own teammate, and noted that Chase's behavior was deemed entirely inappropriate, particularly in a year marked by questionable decision-making that led to suspension. Danielle Trotta took her criticism further by raising questions about Chase Elliott's mental state, suggesting that NASCAR's most popular driver might not be in the right frame of mind. Trotta expressed her concerns, stating, "It makes you wonder what's happening inside Chase Elliott's mind. There's a sense that something isn't quite right mentally. I'm not referring to a situation where he turned someone directly into a wall like he did to Denny at the Coke 600. She emphasized that showing dissatisfaction with a teammate, especially heading into an overtime finish where every position counts, was unequivocally unacceptable, and Elliott should have exercised better judgment. Trotta also posited the existence of a rivalry between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, tracing it back to their collision at Watkins Glen in 2022, which cost Elliott a potential victory. Additionally, Trotta found Elliott's post-race body language and his admission that he didn't intend to send a message to Larson perplexing. She pointed out that the incident could have had significant consequences if the number 9 car had damaged the number 5 car. Both drivers ultimately completed the race, with Larson finishing 4th and Elliott 6th. Following the race, the Hendrick Motorsports duo engaged in a discussion about the pit road collision. Former NASCAR crew chief Larry McReynolds shared his perspective on the on-track altercation between Hendrick Motorsports teammates in a recent episode of Race Hub. McReynolds urged Chase Elliott to focus on controlling his emotions, noting that he had already faced the consequences of letting his emotions get the best of him following a collision with Denny Hamlin. McReynolds found Chase's post-race remarks perplexing and believed they contributed to a negative perception of the situation. Chase Elliott shared his perspective on the incident, taking responsibility for the pit road collision and downplaying any drama surrounding it. He mentioned, "There's a lot that goes on. We obviously ran into each other on pit road, and I didn't have the full picture of what went on, so I was frustrated." Elliott acknowledged that such incidents happened in racing, but emphasized that he would take the blame for his initial frustration. He also highlighted that he and Kyle Larson could have a mature conversation to resolve the issue. During the late round of pit stops, Larson had to maneuver to avoid Brad Keselowski on pit road, inadvertently making contact with Elliott. Elliott, unable to swerve due to Tyler Reddick's presence on his outside, ended up retaliating by swerving into Larson's car upon the apron of the track. After the race, the pair engaged in a conversation on pit road. Kyle Larson explained his perspective, stating that he was aware that they were 3 wide as they exited the pit road. He noted that the number 6 car was pitted in front of them, and he tried to leave as much space as possible. Larson mentioned that he was attempting to avoid a collision with the number 6 car, and that making contact with Chase Elliott was a result of his effort to navigate the tight space. He believed that it was the safest course of action for all involved. Larson expressed understanding of why Elliott was upset in the heat of the moment and hoped that upon reviewing the replay, Elliott would realize the limited space he had to work with, describing it as a matter of inches. In my opinion, this was a relatively minor incident, one that wouldn't typically warrant prolonged discussion if it involved different drivers. However, because it featured Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, it's expected to remain a topic of conversation for months. From a natural perspective, the controversy surrounding this incident may be challenging to grasp. Some may argue that there was hardly any contact between the number 9 and the number 5 cars. Drivers often express their emotions, both positive and negative, by bumping each other. a common occurrence. It's not unusual for competitors to rub fenders, and sometimes it extends to gestures or comments over the radio. For instance, an incident involving Brad and Kurt at Martinsville a few years ago generated some backlash, but it didn't reach the level of this controversy. Kurt Busch faced relatively mild consequences for a more severe incident during his rageaholic phase, when he appeared to attempt to harm another driver with his race car. Tony Stewart even defended him. In another instance, Kyle Busch received a penalty of 5 laps held on pit road at Fall, Texas in 2010 for an obscene gesture towards a pit road official after being caught speeding. Moreover, Larson's recent door slamming of Denny Hamlin under yellow at Pocono adds to the context. While this incident might be seen as a part of a bigger picture following the Denny Hamlin incident earlier this year, it's worth noting that one race and a minor scuffle off pit road do not necessarily define someone as a rageaholic. Chase Elliott's demeanor this season appears to reflect a sense of readiness for it to come to an end, a sentiment that some noticed on him last year as well, albeit hidden behind his 6 wins. There's a question of whether he truly enjoys racing in NASCAR at this point, as he seemed to be in better spirits during his time in late models and SRX racing. It's been mentioned before, but it's possible that if Chase Elliott didn't carry the Elliott name, he might have pursued a different path, perhaps becoming a pilot and finding greater happiness in it. It's also plausible that Elliott simply dislikes the media obligations and other aspects of being the most popular driver. There's a sense that he might prefer a lower profile existence, similar to drivers like Chris Buescher, where he wouldn't have to deal with the media demands every week. He seems like the type of driver who just wants to show up, race, and go home, especially in a year marked by penalties and a leg injury. Even in his more typical 5-win season personality, he may not be particularly enthusiastic. While he didn't choose the attention that comes with the Elliott name, perhaps there's an opportunity to leverage that family legacy in a less high-profile but equally lucrative field. His reserved nature contrasts with the intense spotlight of NASCAR, and not everyone is naturally suited for this level of attention, particularly during an off year. It's worth noting that some drivers, like Bubba Wallace, handle the pressure and scrutiny exceptionally well, thriving in such an environment. However, Elliott appears to be reaching a breaking point, yearning for a respite from the constant scrutiny and camera presence, much like Martin Truex Jr. experienced last year. The demands of the spotlight seem to be wearing on him, leading to moments where he appears to be on the verge of snapping. But there is also the possibility that both of them genuinely don't like each other. The incident at Watkins Glen last year was probably a breaking point for Chase Elliott. The issues between him and Kyle Larson may have begun earlier, as evidenced by Elliott's frustration over radio communication at Fontana when Larson blocked him. There seems to have been some personal tension between the two drivers building up for a while. Being the number 2 driver at Hendrick Motorsports might have taken a toll on Chase. After winning the championship in 2020, he witnessed his new teammate, Larson, dominate and claim the championship the following year. Despite Elliott having a strong season, much of the media attention has been focused on Larson. Additionally, many drivers, both current and retired, often praise Kyle Larson as a generational talent, while similar acclaim for Chase Elliott is less frequently heard. This discrepancy in recognition could also be a factor affecting Elliott's mindset. It seems like Chase is having a streak of bad luck lately. Just look at what's been happening to him. He accidentally had a snowboarding mishap, got into a race incident with Hamlin that NASCAR thought was intentional, and now he accidentally collided with his own teammate on pit road. He went from being a champion to having a stream of clumsy moments in just a few years. In a way, both Larson and Chase have some similarities. Both of them can come across as a bit dull because they often hold back and give very polite, corporate-friendly interviews. And when they show some passion, it often seems genuine. Lately, Larson has been doing better in this regard and has been more open about his feelings. For example, when he bumped into Hamlin at Pocono during a caution period, he explained his frustration in a clear interview. Maybe even Chase can do the same. If you're going to do something like that, why not speak up confidently about it? But it also depends on the journalist or interviewer. Kim Kuhn did a great job pushing Larson to open up, while Bob struggled to do the same with Chase. It's tough for Chase to give a good response if he's not asked the right questions.